What's up, welcome back to Nowstalgia. Dave here with a review of Hoppers, the new animated film from Disney and Pixar, directed by Daniel Chang, a longtime Pixar veteran, making his directorial debut for the studio. Hoppers is, of course, following Pixar's film last year, Elio, which was a big box office disappointment. Pixar in general has come to encapsulate the challenged state of movie going when it comes to original animated fare, and of course contrast that with the megalith success of Zootopia 2 the past few months, of course becoming the highest grossing animated film out of Hollywood, surpassing Pixar's Inside Out 2 from just a few years ago. There's a haves and have-nots aspect when it comes to getting families out to the theater to see original animated movies. Disney Plus probably has been a big factor in keeping people at home for Pixar specifically. We're hoping that'll slowly be changed over time with these larger windows, and I think Hoppers has a chance to help with that and be a bigger success, not a massive hit of course, but hopefully another step in the right direction, because I do think the movie's pretty good. Hoppers is a success for Pixar because anthropomorphic animals continue to really work in animated fare. Whenever you're portraying animal society and dynamics and taking us directly into that storytelling, it lends itself to a lot of really amusing creativity. And Hoppers throws a lot at us. A college student hopping her brain into a robot animal and thus communing with actual animals, learning all about their customs and ways as they move their habitats out of the path of a new highway. The dynamic between this student Mabel and the actual beaver George, who is the king of the mammals, lends itself to a lot of heart. And this film, there's some really fun and creative set pieces, some fun twists. Is there anything super unpredictable about the story? No. Is this still a largely smaller in scope, smaller in ambition style of Pixar storytelling? Yes, but still a pretty solid movie. And if we can take our reverence for the best of the best Pixar movies of yore and just analyze Hoppers on its own terms, it's a pretty good original movie. I do think it lends itself to a sequel, which Disney and Pixar would love to happen. I'll be curious if this movie really stands the test of time for Pixar or it gets swallowed up quite quickly by the upcoming Toy Story 5. We'll find out. But if they're going to keep making, sequels to their best stuff, right? Making a Toy Story 5 after Toy Story 3 and frankly Toy Story 4 were great endings for those stories, for those characters, right? If they're going to do those because they know they're going to print money, then it's good. It's exciting and at least welcome that they're going to fund original stuff, right? And make Hoppers and have, a Pixar veteran make his first movie with Hoppers. Like that's welcome, right? I think Pixar has been kind of going back and forth, right? They've made a lot of original stuff recently. It's just that they haven't had an original film become a massive hit since Coco. And that was 9 years ago at this point, right? So I do feel like the pandemic has really changed Pixar in a negative way, just because streaming and Disney Plus really cut the legs out of these movies at the box office. And there's been some stinkers, right? I think Elio last year wasn't the best, and Lightyear really flopped despite being a offshoot of Toy Story after all. They haven't made their best stuff. I think creatively Pixar is not what it was, but there's still a lot of things to recommend, right? I think Soul, for example, is still really special. And we know they can really deliver with a sequel. Look at what Inside Out 2 did. So I'm hopeful for Hoppers. And again, I think this could be a Pixar franchise if this movie does well enough. It's going to do okay at the box office to start. We'll see how it legs. I mean, Elemental, for example, opened small but really legged out, and that's a movie I like quite a bit. I think that could get a Pixar sequel. I'm hoping Hoppers has a similar life. There hasn't been a lot of kids fare of big style and scope since Zootopia 2. I know the GOAT basketball movie came out, but there's some runway for Hoppers to do really well until the Mario movie comes out in a month. So we'll see. But yeah, I think just there's some fun cleverness here, right? I think it doesn't really waste any time dispensing with the pleasantries. You really got to get into the mix here, but kind of classic Pixar conceit of something really well-intentioned being displayed here. Yeah, kind of like nice message, right? In this case, we have a city that's encroaching on animal habitats. We learn about this sleazy mayor, voiced by John Hamm, installing these voice boxes in fake trees that emit a pulsing sound that's irritating to animals but cannot be heard by humans. And Mabel, via this robot beaver that she stumbles across from her college professor, is able to ingratiate herself with the society. And I think it's really fun when we learn about, as at the pace of the story, as we learn about the mammals all living together and the concept of pond rules and the beaver king George, voiced by Bobby Moynihan, And that's all really fun, light, and nice, right? Again, just chilling with animals, having them talk to each other. It's like, catnip for animated movies. And the movie kind of takes it up a notch when we, learn, unsurprisingly, that there's a king for the other animals, not just mammals, right? So we meet the reptile and the amphibian and the insect and the bird and the fish, king and queens. And that makes for some really good stuff with the council. And then I was not expecting like the animals to necessarily fight back the way they did, the plot taking us into this kind of violent turn where the animals want revenge and want to squish, as they say, the mayor. They want to go kill the mayor. It lends itself again to a lot of crazy set pieces. When Mabel and George and the other and their allies kind of become at odds with the other mammals who have the squish on the mind, it lends itself to a lot of, I think, funny iconography, right? There's a lot of nods to the Birds film, for example, the horror movie. The way that a shark comes into play is absolutely outrageous and ridiculous, but really fun, really cool. I think that scene, that extended set piece with the car chase will be bonkers for kids watching the movie, I'd have to imagine. Dave Franco, his voice work as King Titus, I thought was a lot of fun, really great. I also like visually how they portrayed when Mabel is in the robot body and is able to see like a truly animated animal with their eyes and their mouths moving. And then when she's back in her human form and can't communicate with an animal, it looks like a normal animal to us with these more black, stoic eyes. And obviously we can't understand what they're saying. It was really good visual shorthand for where you're at in any given scene in terms of what you're watching and what the characters can and can't understand. Now, if Hoppers is able to open to 30 million plus at the box office this weekend, which seems to be on track to do, it would actually be the highest grossing Pixar film since Coco came out back in 2017. And there's a lot of caveats about that. Some of those movies went right to Disney Plus during the pandemic, but I think it still speaks to improvement and slowly strengthening of the brand. And of course, we'll see Toy Story 5 blow out the box office the way Inside Out 2 did. But to see some improvement on the original front, I think it is welcome. Now, Coco, did 50 million plus, and that was, 9 years ago with box office inflation. So we're a far cry from what Coco was able to achieve, let alone, obviously, the heyday of Pixar. But I'm hoping, that this, again, can have a kind of elemental-like tale. So we'll see. I'm definitely rooting for this, is because I do think it's pretty fun. I do think it's pretty quirky and light and has that classic Pixar message that you enjoy. And you would think the word of mouth would be pretty strong. It's actually gotten incredibly strong positive reviews. I don't know if anyone's necessarily calling this movie like a Pixar classic, but very few people are calling the movie bad. And that's a good place to be. Not everything can be your best. And I think this hopefully will get people excited to see the movie. And so we'll see how Hoppers does. I'm definitely rooting for the movie. Let me know, though, what did you think of Pixar's Hoppers? What did you like most about it? And for more movie reviews, subscribe. And I'll see you next time.